calls now.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and we're joined by special guest Brian Castrillo, or Castrillo, or however you want to be called, Brian.
Either or works.
And of course, Charity, aka Blazy Gardner, Survivor Tiers members, Jasmine.iec on Instagram, and for the first time, hello. Actually, this is what I meant to ask you before we got on. How shall I refer to you?
Whatever you want to do. I am a woman with many names, apparently.
So we'll just call you Bridget, if that's all right. Some people like their anonymity. Well, what do you want? Anyway, so we're here to you live right now on all streaming platforms except for Instagram, because fuck that noise. Demonetized. No, seriously, it's just a lot harder because now I have all the chat in the screen. We see the Twitch. Oh, so people are asking about the intro. That has been our intro for Fear the Walking Dead season 6 through season 7. Unfortunately, it does need an update. I designed it myself. I designed the sound myself, too. I based it off of some of the promos. I kind of did a reverse sort of thing going on, and I did a little clock thing, and it's kind of cool. Like, unfortunately, the people that are with me right now on stream, I mean, Sharon knows our intro, and Jasmine, I think, knows our intro. I think Brian maybe you've seen our Fear the Walking Dead intro. And I still haven't made the ringtone yet for it, so whatever. Which is something I meant to put in the store for, a pay what you want sort of thing. But thank you for the compliments. Appreciate it. But hey, we're here. We're here to talk about Madison, right? Madison Clark's return. Do we have any catch up? I think. Well, we just had our interview with Christine Evangelista. I think it was just yesterday night. Check that out when you get a chance. It was really, really fun to actually record with her. She's a really, really sweet and funny person. Wink, wink. So, Sharon D and Rachel did a bang-up job asking the right questions, and so did Tom, actually. And a couple of really cool people like Cameron and Fan Art Lindy and Aiden. So it's really good to see you guys on. As you can see you guys. You're in the chat on the screen right now. Hey, Loris. Hey, Blazy Gardner. Maxine's in Twitch. Hey, Jasmine. What's up? Okay. So the way I wanted to start this off first is by kind of going around the room, starting with Brian. Well, let's start with myself because really I kind of wanted to touch base with everyone on what they thought of Madison as a character prior to her departure. And we'll start with like maybe 1 through 3 impressions for those who have watched 1 through 3. But me first. I happen to love the Madison character. I think her complexity was polarizing for a reason. I think it was a really good foil, in a sense, to the Rick Grimes character in a way where you saw Rick Grimes come into the series as what appeared to be a paragon character, like a kind of like hero protagonist, and then slowly you see the devolution of that character. Catching up with the rest of humanity, kind of being an awful person, sort of. Not really, but like we all are infected, we all are corrupted. So when I see Madison kind of come into the series in a way that's, she sort of is coming out of the gate as a flawed character, in a sense. I kind of like that. I kind of like that she's polarizing. I like that she's complicated. So that was my impression of her. And then the more the series went on, the more I kind of even like identified with that. Like I saw the Clarks as a family in this apocalypse that was just a regular dysfunctional family with extraordinary dysfunctions, but jacked up for TV. And so I kind of like that they kind of wandered into this universe. And now what happens? And every person they meet in the series is kind of like this larger than life character, more or less, and still kind of gray, but like still like they're all wandering around these larger-than-life characters, meeting up and befriending these larger-than-life characters, and yet they're still like a dysfunctional family in the apocalypse. So that was my take. And then as I watched the series, and by the time I reached season 4, I noticed like she kind of had like Kim Dickens herself and the character Like I noticed like similarities to her and my own mother. You know, she's kind of complicated. She kind of looks a little bit like my mother in some ways. So I thought that was an interesting thing that I saw, and of course I have built-in biases. So so there we are. But Brian, I wanted to kind of turn it over to you to what you think of what you thought of Madison. You know, prior to the departure, what did you think of her character? How do you identify with her in any way, or what was your take on the character?
For me, Madison is in my top two characters all time on the show. Her, Daniel Salazar is probably my favorite character, but I really love Madison because of some of the things that you had mentioned, some of the flaws that she had as an individual. I felt that there was a lot of connection with her and Rick Grimes as well as Daryl Dixon. There was a lot of Daryl Dixon moments, such as like, if you remember the time when Daryl ended up killing Dale, kind of put him out of his misery and kind of took the gun away from Rick. I see that as her. She's always willing to do the heavy lifting for the team, for the family, so to speak. Um, and I just always felt she was a great leader within the group. Now, a lot of her flaws as a whole, I mean, as a leader, might be her family kind of gets in the way, but that just shows how connected she is with her family, and she'll put them before her. I've always connected with her.
And let's start with the. Let's actually go to Bridget right now. Have you seen seasons 1 through 3? What did you think of Madison? Then, how did you start when it comes to Fear of the Walking Dead?
So I started watching Fear when it first started airing.
Okay.
And I watched, I want to say, through the first 2 seasons, and then I like took a break from it for a little bit, and then came back. I think right around season 4, because Morgan was making the switch over. So,
Right.
so I wanted to check that out. So I started watching and getting caught up. And Madison's always been like a really complex character. She frustrates me sometimes, like, because her decision making is so contingent on her family and their safety, but almost to like a ridiculous degree at moments. So so I liked her.
Oh wait, we were talking about Rick or Madison?
Madison.
I'm just kidding.
Where you just like shake her, you know, like stop what you're doing, like you're being ridiculous right now. And especially when I got to the stuff at the ranch. That was when I really was like, oh, come on.
Which is also kind of weird, but you mentioned the ranch. We're talking about Teotihuacan, Brokejaw. Well, it's funny how there are so many Erickson era fans who either really, 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 really love season 3 above all the seasons 1 through 3, or some of them are just like, nah, no B. Season 2, that was it. It's like a really, really intense love, or like I could do without season 3, which is kind of like Madison. I really, really like her, or I don't know if I like this much complication. So just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah. So when you reached season 4, Madison, what was, because obviously there is a bit of a shift in the character.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that?
A big one. I thought, like, at the very beginning of season 4, it's kind of still her same, you know, old self, but then it takes like a really swift maneuver over, where you're like, what is happening? Like, why is this happening now? And then you're getting all these like flashbacks, because that's how you're like seeing all of this stuff, is, you know, from everybody's like memory perspective. And it becomes this parallel to like Morgan's story, which, as much as I love Morgan, I think we can all kind of say that story has kind of been done to death. Like,
I don't know what you're talking about. It's the I Hate Morgan Club now. No, I'm kidding. Welcome to the family. Okay, so let's move around to actually Jasmine. Have you watched the first 3 seasons? I think you did, right?
So I watched like the start of season 1, got bored, gave up. Season 2 came out, watched the start, got bored, gave up. Watched the start of season 3, got bored, gave up. Watched the start of season 4, finally got into the show.
Which is...
But then I did go back once I finished season 6. I went back and forced myself through season 1 to 3.
And what's the verdict?
Or Madison or the show?
how about just Madison? That's probably just going to simplify things.
So, without kind of repeating the same things that Bridget said, because I agree with a lot of what she said, is that I just found Madison to be arrogant and unwilling to listen to any other characters. And that kind of pissed me off. I'm just like, what are you doing?
Like my mother. Listen, I'm used to it.
I didn't enjoy her character whatsoever, not even in season 4.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
especially in season 4, she was very arrogant in season 4.
Right. So Sharon D, similar to Jasmine, I think it was that you had watched basically season 1. It's only 6 episodes.
I haven't finished season 1 yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm still hung up on 10. I finished 105. I'm about 20 minutes into 106. Yeah.
So let's start from your perspective in season 4. I mean, obviously, you didn't have enough time to get to know her, and she's gone by episode 8 in season 4. But what had you thought of the character up until then? Because actually, and I like that perspective because there's always something to be said about coming into something with a fresh take without knowing too much backstory.
Well, not only was I brand new to Madison, but I was brand new to the Walking Dead universe overall. So, I was like, oh, like, she's wants to help people. That's cool. I like the way this show is going. And then they killed her off. But, I mean, to be fair, John and June is why I got into the show. So John and June were my focus. Like, all the other characters were kind of ancillary. You know, I didn't really get into them as much.
Right.
So, I mean, she was just there, you know. She was just a character that was in the show. I didn't really have any feelings one way or the other.
Which does say something about, and look, I have my criticisms of the shift in tone or, I don't know, storytelling when it comes to Fear the Walking Dead by the time season 4 rolls around. And it's not like as though it ruins the experience for me, but of course it's a jarring for people who've been watching all along, like I did from the start. It is a jarring experience, and I think it warrants being said, at least for the first time. But it never ruined my experience necessarily, and didn't ruin Brian's experience, I don't think, right? As much as we both grieved probably by the time Madison left the show, because even that is emblematic of like the shift in tone. Is like Madison leaving the show is kind of like this weird, what happened? What happened to the show? What happened to Madison? Why is she gone? Why is this happening? I wanted to also touch base on a conversation that will be released shortly and is already released on ko-fi.com/Squawking Dead, you folks. If you like what you're hearing right now and you feel like it, you can head over to our website right now and tip us during the stream, and your support will show right now live on the stream. But we already have up my conversation with, and I'm finally revealing it to you. If you haven't been following on ko-fi.com/Squawking Dead, I had a chat with Sarah Beth Pollock, and we were only supposed to talk about The Walking Dead season 11A thus far, but we ended up touching on a bunch of things. Namely, we even talked about the shift in tone in between the first 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead to Fear the Walking Dead season 4, and we really dug in when it came to trying to make sense out of it at the time. Then realizing by the time season 6 rolls around, because we were recording right at the start of season 7, episode 1, like right before then, and she had seen what they were trying to do right at the time when season 4 rolled around, and as it was explained to her by the creators, by the people she was talking to, like Michael Sadger-Zemas, and I don't know that she got a chance to sit down with Chambliss and Goldberg, but like the other characters, or the other actors rather, and she had said, oh wait, this is something that we have to kind of take the long game with, because the more time rolls on, the more you start to see what they're trying to do, and now bringing us back to the subject of this conversation, now with Madison coming back, how does that change the series? Right? How does that... It's almost as if this was planned, and it was. Not Madison return. Actually, I'm curious to know what you guys think. Maybe this could be the first question. Do you think Madison's return was planned all along, in light of Chambliss and Goldberg having said for the last 3 years, plus that she would never be coming back. So I'm wondering what you guys think. Let's do this in order with Jasmine, actually. Do you think Madison was always going to return?
No. I think that they received a lot of pressure, and I feel like it probably went over the heads of Ian and Andrew, and it was probably from above them. They were like, you need to bring back Madison because that's what the fans are crying out for.
Okay, so what about you, Sharon D? Thanks, David.
Well, I think maybe they're possibly worried about ratings after the main show's ending, and Fear is going to be kind of left out there on its own. And maybe they felt like bringing Madison back would be a great way to boost the ratings and get people who had left the show to come back.
Which, interestingly enough, it's not as if they left. Because something we also talked about, Sarah Beth and I, they never left. They ended up hate watching the show until like season 6 rolled around, because around the time that season 6 rolled around, everyone was like, oh, I think I like this. So you got some of those people back. But no, to your point, I think there's a little of that going on. What about you, Brian? I'm going kind of clockwise in the order that I see you guys.
Well, I don't think from the beginning it was probably planned, because as you all know, there was different showrunners, so there was a change in that scenery. But I believe they left it ambiguous or open-ended, so that way, if they needed to, they can bring her back. And I also agree with Jasmine. There was a bit of some fan pressure as well, but the fact that she was left open-ended gave them a chance to kind of throw a grenade in the story, and because when she comes back, she's going to be a ball of energy to the story. Not that anybody else isn't, but she's going to, I guess, shift the focus a little bit. And like Sharon D was saying, with some of the fans that had left, or if they left, this is going to bring back some more interest with the main show closing. But I don't think it was initially planned, but I feel it was just open-ended.
Right. So
they have the opportunity.
They saw an opportunity. Right. What about you, Bridget? Curious what you think.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both, right? Because Erickson had originally had all those plans, like for Madison's character, and the Clark family was supposed to live till season 7 or whatever plans he had. And then when the new showrunners came in and they decided to go the direction that they went, which I am a fan of, by the way, I do like the newer seasons. And John and June were a big part of that, because some of those storylines were not great, but John and June was like super strong.
Right. Fair assessment. I mean, there are many that feel that way too, especially people who really, really like The Walking Dead. They kind of watched the first 3 seasons, or they tried to, and they were like, not for me. But when season 4 rolled around, maybe it was Morgan coming to the show. Maybe it was the shift in tone to be a little bit more like The Walking Dead in a sense of these somewhat larger than life characters, whereas The Walking Dead had the samurai and the sheriff. On The Walking Dead, you had the June and the John Dory, the gunslinger, and the reporter
and the karate man.
Right, exactly. And
I think you've previously described some of the season 4 characters, like season 4 plus characters, as more like comic book characters, and obviously our show actually, like the main show, actually has comic book characters brought to life.
Right.
So the people that enjoy The Walking Dead are going to enjoy the idea of having these characters that are similar to comic book characters.
Right. And what's interesting about Ian and Andrew themselves, for those of you who don't know, they were the showrunners for Once Upon a Time. So it's not strange to see how they saw what was great about The Walking Dead and wanted to take some of those elements and import them into the show. And again, I will bring up and I will admit that it is a jarring transition. 100%. But it's kind of like life, right? Life throws you a hurdle. And what you can do from that point is say, no, thank you. Or, you can work through the problem. And I decided to work through the problem. And I think many of you have. Many of you kind of only started from season 4. But, and then it's just a matter of seeing value at that point, right? It's a matter of saying, well, it may not be what I was used to. And I did like the seasons 1 through 3 for what they were. But do I like what this is now? And I did. So and then they took Madison away from us. And then I was like, I don't know what to think anymore. It was one thing, and I actually said this, I think I sort of said this at the time. I said, I don't know what to think anymore, because at first they told us to swallow this storyline. And then they completely took the matriarch out of the question, out of the equation. And so I was devastated. I was so devastated. But in that devastation, I kind of said, they must know what they're doing. So to answer the original question, do I think they originally intended for her to come back? I actually don't think they did. I think they must have thought at some point, or they must have written a loose storyline where, what if Madison could return? Because I think at that point they were like, nah, this is for a reason. And maybe that reason, and we could discuss this at some point if we want to, maybe that reason is to elevate the Alicia character. And then they didn't do that anyway. So, but it's kind of like I was saying with Sarah Beth, that clearly at this point, we're in season 7, clearly all of this, 4, 5, 6, all of this was building to this end point, because you can't watch seasons 4 through 6 and, at the time and say, oh, well, at the time, I'm kind of iffy on these storylines a bit. I like the individual stories. I like the individual episodes. But as an arc, there's something off about it. But when you get to the end of season 6, you're like, okay, I'm looking back now and seeing that all the stuff has relevance. Like, everything we've seen thus far has relevance. And now that we're in season 7 and we're starting to see these people falling back to their old characteristics, and then yet not, right? So you have Strand being extra, kind of like he was before the apocalypse, let's say. But this whole new level of Strand, right? Strand being Super Strand 5 at this point, And then Morgan being somewhat of his old character, but trying to make up for his old mistakes on The Walking Dead, like not killing Jenny, and yet now being ready to fire. Like when he was pulling away at the Pinto, he is the first to fire into the back of that hatch. As this was episode 2, I think it was, of season 7. And he's like not hesitating this time. So you're seeing them overcome these things, but it's not all great. So now when you hear Madison comes back, how does that look? Is she going to be the same character she was in seasons 1 through 3? Right. I see you already shaking your head, Brian. And that's kind of like a little bit of what I wanted to focus on next, because something that we also say on the show is, you may not get what you want, but you like what you'll like what you get. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. But Brian, so what do you think, how do you think they may fold in Madison in light of, let's say, Alicia having this problem of possibly dying, let's say, and in light of what I just said about the characters kind of being their old selves, but kind of being extra overcoming their old foibles, let's say?
Well, the first thing I'll mention is that I do believe the decision by Frank Delaney kind of created the shift, or forced this shift to happen. And
I agree with that 100%.
He was a loved character, almost to the sense of Daryl Dixon on The Walking Dead. But now you have Madison Clark, who, parents don't have favorites, but clearly Nick was her favorite. And she tried to go all out to help him because of his drug addiction and everything else that was going wrong in his life. So she had sort of a mother bear like grip on him, where she didn't want to let him go. But now she's coming into a situation where she has no idea that Nick's dead, at least yet, that we know of. And then you have her only daughter who is sick and got bitten. She doesn't know what's going on with her, and she may lose her. So now you're going to see Madison, who is going to go into, in my opinion, extreme mother bear protection mode for her only child, and she may be probably a little bit more aggressive than the Madison that we did know. And I think she may, I don't want to say she's going to be a villainous, at least, well, maybe to Strand she will be, but that's just my thoughts.
Something I also wanted to touch on too. Anybody else have anything to say to that? Like in response to that? Feel free, jump in. The water's fine.
Well, I think the most interesting thing to come out of this would be Madison's reaction to Strand now, and how he's reacting after promising her that he was going to take care of her kids, like if she wasn't around. And Nick is now gone, and Alicia is crazy. So like, so she's like not okay right now, and now she's like so angry at Strand, and he is so convinced in pushing her away that it's created this like potential war thing that's going to go on. So I think it'll be really interesting for her to come in and get caught up and be like, what happened to this relationship?
Right. I was actually reacting to the chat a little bit. I kind of want to tie all of that into what the chat's saying right now about Charlie and headbutting happening soon. Teresa, what is that? Oh, Carranza says, I really hope they don't get another Ophelia moment where it'd be a missed opportunity. So to Loris's point, he says season 1 through 3, Madison was building up to a villainous Madison, according to Dave Erickson. I'm almost thinking that Alicia's taking on that role, in a sense. We're going to war. That whole thing, right? I can't get over that line. But what does it look like to see Madison come back? And I want to tie this into Charlie a little bit too. The season 4 Madison I saw was a Madison who was kind of almost just in this little microcosm of her and Charlie, almost making up for what she didn't do with Alicia. Alicia's grown up, It's true that she poured all of her attention into Nick, who is kind of deficient in some respects, like emotionally and developmentally, right? Nick needed most of the help while kind of ignoring Alicia, let's say, right? At the expense of Alicia's development and growth. Even though Madison kind of explains at some point that I always knew that you could take care of yourself. You always kind of had this leader quality, etc., right? Okay, I've got to charge this light at some point. But anyway, but then I saw her relationship with Charlie as a way of sort of redoing what she didn't do with Alicia, with Charlie. Like, it's got to work this time. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let what I didn't do, what happened to you, happen to Charlie. I'm not going to let that happen again. So I'm doing it with Charlie. Got to build this home for her. I got to, because I can't do that with you. You're all grown up. So when I see that relationship, I see that's what happened there. So how am I tying this all together? Okay, let's say she comes back. Alicia's in trouble. And how does she react to her friend, Victor? How does Victor react to Madison coming back? And what has Madison been doing all this time? Where was she during the fallout? Right? So there's a lot of bones in the stew right now that we just kind of have to, a lot of obstacles. I kind of want to shift it over to Sharondy actually too. So when you hear that somebody like Madison is returning, and this is intentional, I'm pointing it to you intentionally because we all kind of think this, because I know what you're going to say, but what's the first thought that comes into your mind? Like what is the concern, let's say?
Yeah.
Let me plug my light in. In the meantime.
Why would you ask me this? Okay.
Because I'm an asshole.
I don't really have. Okay. I don't care about Madison either way. She's just a character. I don't know her well. Like perhaps if things had shaken out differently when I came into the fandom, maybe I would care more. But the fact is, I have been pressured by some people to the point that I don't care about Madison.
So it's the fans you hate, not the band. But
I don't care about. That's what I'm saying. I don't care about Madison either way. She was never a character that I connected with or gave a crap about in any sense until I started getting pressured by other people.
Right. Let's hone in on that a little bit more. Not necessarily.
I told you I didn't want to. get into the beehive.
Well,
You
not
know what I'm saying?
necessarily
But,
your
okay.
experience, because I experienced what you experienced too, and I think Brian, you to a certain extent have also dealt with that fan base as well, as much as you agree with them, in some senses.
I
They
don't
can
agree with them 100%.
right, but they can be a little rowdy.
I mean, I experienced that not only in here, but in the Star Wars fandom as well as Marvel. But and The Walking Dead. But it just some people are a little bit cuckoo, I guess. I don't want to say that as like a mean way, but some people take it too serious where
Right,
you can't have a dialogue with them anymore.
right, and everybody's entitled to their favorites. I get that. I mean, I have my favorite, but I cherish story above all. That's kind of what I want to hone in on: the story versus the fans, right?
Yes.
So when it comes, and that's unfortunate too, Madison. I just call you Madison, Charity. It's unfortunate, Charity.
So I'm about to leave this stream right now.
It's unfortunate, Sharon, because like the first thing you said when I mentioned what you thought of Madison when you first saw her is like, oh, she's kind of cool. She's kind of helping people. Complicated, but helping people. I mean, you didn't get to see her all the iterations of how complicated she is, but you saw her. She's helping people. She wants to help people. Par for the course for Fear the Walking Dead. They all want to make up for something. They all want to see what they can do in this apocalypse, right? But to your point, that you came in the way you did and have this particular impression from your point of view. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because when you feel a certain way about certain characters because of the way you came into the series, it's kind of unfair to get the kind of hate your way from people, who, of course, the kernel of the opinion has legs, but when you run into brick walls all the time, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice as a fan. And when you're trying to steer other fans away from a show, so like you, Sharon D, when somebody kind of just says, oh, you like June and to hate Madison, it's like, well, I don't hate Madison, but you're making me. So it doesn't help
That's
matters.
exactly That's
all I'm
it.
saying, yeah.
Like, I could have formed a completely different opinion on Madison, but like even the pressure from, I'm gonna call them the season 1 through 3ers, that people keep pressuring
I
me
call
to
them
go back and
Ericksonites.
watch this, even though I've said it several times. Like, I've tried. It just didn't click with me, and everybody's like, "Oh, you gotta go." I don't. You're making me not want to even more. So just
That's a lot like
stop. I'll watch it eventually. I'm working on it.
that's a lot like when we were pressuring Rachel to watch Game of Thrones
Excellent show.
to a kind degree, right? We were like,
Yeah.
you'll really like
But
it, Rachel.
Game of Thrones deserves to have. Game of Thrones you deserve to be pressured into watching Game of Thrones.
But we pressured out of we didn't bully you. We didn't bully her into watching it. So
Right.
it's different.
Right.
It's different. So
But yeah, I mean, I could like Madison. I don't know. I like the badass ladies. Maybe she'll come back and be someone that I'll be totally into.
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
know. But if people keep bullying me about her, it's not going to happen.
and that, by the way, knowing that you like the badass ladies, knowing you like what was it, Sherry's line? Asshole. What was it? What was the ass?
Thanks. Enjoy the view, asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
Knowing that you know
Enjoy
that.
the view, asshole. But
I actually really do think you would appreciate her character. It's funny. But to your point, if the fans make it almost impossible, it's hard. It's hard to kind of come around on that. But I think the way, and this is my opinion at least, on how they're going to roll out this Madison, it's not at all going to be like we expect it to. Too much time has passed. A nuclear bomb fell. And there's no telling where she's been all this time. Which is why I think you, Sharon D, will appreciate this Madison more, because you got to see this. I'm trying to help people, Madison. I'm trying to make changes, life changes, as a result of seasons 1 through 3 and beyond, like my past. So when you see this Madison, it's going to be kind of fresh and new, and you kind of have this like tabula rasa where you can judge her without all the baggage, in a sense. Kind of like walking into a universe and seeing John and June for the first time, being like, "This is cool. I think I'll watch this." So I can see that happening for you. Whereas I don't know if Rachel, I'll have high hopes for Rachel in a sense, because she has all that baggage.
No. Oh, yeah. This is for Rachel.
I roll.
Sorry,
Gotcha.
I had to get one of those in there. The eye roll.
Let me give context to Rachel because she's not here. Rachel had never liked Madison. So I have to be fair in saying that I think many people do have that opinion. Even people who really, really loved 1 through 3 more than anything else. Some of them even will go, yeah, Madison, side eye. Yeah. So, and they'll watch it for a character like Nick or Daniel Salazar. Yeah, many hardcore Salazar fans. I kind of want to turn it to, well, let's see, Bridget, what do you think? How does that make you feel to see that Madison is returning? Like,
I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I want her to come back and add depth to the story and help like steer Alicia back on, to the correct path. And I don't know what else. If Strand has to die, maybe it has to be by Madison's hand. I'm not really sure, but I'm hopeful. But I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't know which version of Madison will come back.
right.
And I don't know how everyone else feels about this, but there's no keeping Madison from her kids. I mean, Nick had to like physically stop her from going after Alicia when Alicia left. So I don't know. Is there like a CRM aspect to this? Like,
Some may say.
just saying.
Brian, what do you think about that? Because you've had many theories on the subject of Madison, and the CRM one has been a common theory. Where do you think Madison's been all this time?
My hope for
Sorry.
Madison,
It's a lot.
my personal hope is that Crazy Dog and Walker turned around at some point and actually found her and at the last moment saved her while the family was going away. They just didn't happen to see that. And then
I see why you'd say personally though, because it's a rough one. But yeah. But what do you actually think, or what are you leaning towards?
The CRM, I mean, clearly the CRM has a lot of connections throughout the entire United States. I mean, when you looked at the map on the World Beyond, you saw the different, colonies, or not colonies, but I guess camps that they had all throughout the United States. So there's a very good chance that they could have met Madison, possibly saved her. And who knows, maybe Isabel even saved her that we don't know about.
True that.
I could see the CRM, taking her, but I don't know if Madison is the type of person who would accept that. But then again, I don't think Rick Grimes would either.
Yeah.
Kind of parallel.
Maybe they both, just like Rick, she didn't have much of a choice. Very possible. Let's see, Jasmine. What are your thoughts on this so far, Jasmine? Like, and I kind of want to focus a little bit on Alicia with your answer. Like, I mean, actually, maybe this is a better question. Like, what's
Can I?
Do you have to Alexa? What? Sorry.
No, can I want to say something.
Sure.
Okay, so I am quite, like, even though I don't like Madison, I'm willing to give them a chance and, like, see what happens and see if they improve their character. But one big thing that I'm actually really concerned about is, at the moment, we've seen, especially with the bottle episodes, like, characters just getting less and less screen time. So I feel like bringing in Madison at this stage is just going to narrow down, like, our kind of characters' screen time, like June, John Dory Sr.,
Morgan?
Sarah, Wendell, like, at the moment it's very
Lucy,
Morgan,
who already doesn't have any screen
Morgan
time.
Strand, and I don't want it to become Morgan, Strand, and Madison, and nobody else getting any screen time.
Right. True that. And that's kind of the big concern. That's right. No, I think all of us here, and I think even many people would kind of agree, the number one concern about Madison returning is her chewing the screen up, and putting certain characters, like you said, Sharon D, like Luciana, even further back in the chorus, as it were, than she already is. I mean, you could see moments where they try to kind of give her the focus, let's say in season 6 and season 7, but it just wasn't enough.
When was the last time we saw Annie, Max, and Dylan, and some of the other more minor characters? They literally haven't had any screen time.
I think that's a
Hashtag bring back Tess.
Yep.
Yeah. What were you saying, Brian?
I was saying when she mentioned the kids, I think that's a flaw in the writing, not so much a character taking away screen time, because they introduced. I mean, that wasn't one of my favorite seasons, but they introduced this group of kids, and then they just weren't there anymore, and then that's it.
Yeah.
No explanation, no speak. No one talks about them. Similar to like Luke on The Walking Dead. Like
Yeah.
where
Yeah, it's a good point. I, and I'm actually more leaning in that direction. And it bears mentioning that a lot of it is due to COVID. I think we've talked about this on the show during season 6. They've had to completely change the way they focused on characters, anthology series, but also the way they film because they didn't really know what to expect. I mean, they were always going to do the anthology series and maybe bring in the kids probably during all of this their planning. But I think with COVID restrictions, them losing money because of shutting down, and I think it really did change the way they had to do things. Now, of course, could they have written in at least an explanation somewhere along the way? And I think they had tried to do that, right? At some point, I feel like we got a hint of maybe where they were, but then
They're in the
No,
cabins.
they haven't said anything.
right, but then
They haven't mentioned them since season 6.
and even if they did, once the bombs dropped, it's like out the window. We have no idea where Samuels is. Ranger Samuels. She was with Victor at the sort of. Yeah, well, yeah.
Where are all the office people?
Right.
Where are all the people from the office that came back with Al
We have
and
to
Dwight?
assume that they're alive because Wendell is alive.
I honestly don't know what to think. I actually have thought of this for a little while. And despite my more optimistic impulses, I'm Mr. Doom and Gloom on this one.
I mean,
I'm-
if they are dead, they could have at least give the justification of like just watching like a bomb drop on a bunch of people, and then we can be like, oh, they're dead. But no, they didn't even give us like any like reason in either direction.
Mention them.
You know,
They're staying in the caverns.
I kind of like what Loris is saying right now.
They
Madison saved the kids, and actually, I would be okay with that. I actually think that's a really great, which and it's ironic too. Madison saving the kids.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could feel her doing that with Charlie. It kind of makes sense. Like, I wasn't there for my other kid. Let me be there for all the kids. You know, so I kind of like that. She saves Tess and the kids. And Ranger Samuels is kind of like, well, what about me? No, bitch, die. So, like, I like Samuels. Great character. But still, underdeveloped and whatever. But so I was saying, but despite my most bright impulses, I do have little hope for those characters. I mean, we have to all kind of agree, though we don't want to, that when a nuclear bomb goes off, it's almost unreasonable to think all these characters made it out alive. Do you know what I mean? As much as it is a show and, you know, oh, everybody gets lucky somehow, there's got to be some sacrifices, and there may be a possibility that we don't know or we'll never know what happened to them. And maybe just like Madison, they could pop up and we could get a story out of that, and they could be a Tales of the Walking Dead story that we can spin out of that. But I kind of want to get your takes on that. I know what we want to have happen with certain characters, but what do you think? What do you really think, or what do you think they're going to do with these characters, with these kids, let's say, for starters? And then we'll move our way up to Luciana, because the kids are a big question. You can't just bring somebody in and not follow up. Like, do you think that they will come back? Let's start with that. Do you think the kids will come back somehow? Let's start with Bridget.
I mean, I don't know that they will. I don't think this season at all.
Wow.
Hopefully, with rolling back, you know, COVID regulations and stuff, maybe the next season they can kind of return to the way that the format was prior to the like constant bottle episodes.
Ensemble, yeah.
So maybe then, but I don't foresee it happening like in this year.
Right. Anybody else have any thoughts on the kids? What might be?
I feel like they're going to be left in the dust, so to speak, unless they're used as a sort of a villainous arc where they do something to the kids to show, you know, a villainous point of view.
Mm.
But I don't see them coming back. I want some kind of answer where they are, even just a mention.
Right. Same. I think we all feel that way.
There was too much of that season focus on them to not say anything.
Loris also has another point. Fear has a history of disappearing characters, even from season 1 through 3. There are some really great characters. Alex, my favorite character in the series. Really. I've said this, I actually said this with Sarah Beth as well. And I bring her up every season. So, fuck Tobias. Alex. That's me. Fuck Tobias. I don't want to hear Tobias' name ever again, even though I will. Diana, Proctor John, Walker, Crazy Dog, Tobias, and Tobias. Really? No, I'm kidding. Theresa said it would be nice to see what happened to them instead of just speculation of the possibilities with no answers. If they all died, then do a scene and show us, or just tell us. I mean, yeah, I agree. Let's turn it over to more of the Alicia focus, because Madison coming back presents a unique opportunity for Alicia in light of her illness, let's say, right? How do you think that interaction will go? And I kind of want to start that off with Jasmine. What do you think, let's say, Alicia takes on the villain role and Madison kind of dials it back, or Madison, as per usual, maybe takes over for Alicia and kills Victor? There are so many ways this can go, but where do you feel this might go? Because we've had time to think about this.
My thoughts on this is probably initially Madison's going to be like, what the fuck's going on? But obviously back her daughter in this kind of situation.
Oh.
But I'm feeling like she is going to try and get like a peaceful resolution. And it's all going to depend on Strand from that position. Like if Strand is kind of willing to make peace with Madison there to kind of assist it, like almost taking on like the Andrea role of season 3, then I think that Strand might make peace. But if Strand goes the other way and is just like against Madison, I think Madison will just go full batshit crazy.
I was waiting for the caveat. It was like, I'm surprised that this oh, there we go. Okay. Batshit crazy. I can identify with that. Sheridan, do you have a take on this one maybe?
Well, I'm thinking, like, what if they bring Madison back in kind of a Pope role, where she and whatever group of people she has managed to put together takes over Padre, and Alicia and Morgan and Strand, instead of fighting each other, have to band together and fight against Madison.
Interesting. Because when we think of Madison returning, we don't think about who might be with her. I like that.
Yeah, that's not something that I'd considered.
Right. It's kind of like the Carol and Daryl spinoff. We think, oh, it's Carol and Daryl, obviously, right? But who's with them? For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, because this is also an audio podcast, I did the finger going into a hole because Carol and Daryl, right? Anyway, I'm eye rolling now too. So, no, it's a good point. Bridget, what do you think specifically? Let's say with surrounding Alicia and maybe even Strand, what do you think the opportunity of Madison coming back presents for Alicia, let's say? Or how do you think that's going to roll out?
I mean, if she's coming back, like, for what we know right now, like in this moment that we're leading up to, I see it going really badly for Strand. Now, I don't know, because is Madison going to be like, Alicia, what are you talking about? Like, walkers remember things, and you've got a crazy skeleton arm. Like, I don't know what I feel about her in that regard, but that's her daughter, and so she's always going to side with family. That's clearly what she's shown through her character over the years. So I don't think it bodes well for Strand. Now, Strand was her family in a way, you know,
The found family.
Since the apocalypse on. So I don't know. I think that'll be a really difficult decision for her, and maybe they play that emotional angle up, you know.
Right. I mean, it presents a very interesting opportunity to see, do you choose your found family or do you choose your actual family? I mean, what would it look like to see, and Brian, don't worry, I'll come to you. What would it look like to see Madison actually side with Victor in this one, right? I mean, we always have to try to think about the what if that doesn't feel like it's possible. What if it is? What if it is possible? What if Alicia's so far off the rails and she may be dying anyway? We've been put in this position where
Can we assume that she no longer thinks that walkers know things after like her failed experiment though?
yeah, I think she's beyond that right now. I mean, that's what I think. But what did she? And I gotta ask, did she have you guys going a little for just for a little moment that like, is this even possible? Is this? I'm just curious about what you think that walkers remember things, or have some sort of learned behavior. At any point, were you guys suckered like me? I'm admitting it. I'm like, no, spooky beta shit. What?
I mean, in this show, there's always a possibility for anything. So
Thank you.
maybe that's what they're
don't-
leading up to with the stinger scene, which I know we're going to talk about at some other time.
Right.
But maybe that's what they're leading up to with the stinger scene. Is maybe they
In the
really
Walking
do
Dead World
remember
Beyond,
things, and that's something.
you mean?
Right, that's something they're going to bring up. Maybe that's something that's going to tie in. So
Hmm.
you know, maybe.
Interesting.
Like my feeling was it could be true because who knows, they'll do whatever they want in the show anyway.
Right.
All this time it wasn't true, but you know what? It's true now.
It
So-
actually was true. Lisa's got an edge. What do you think, Brian? Oh, sorry, Bridget,
Well-
you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say I think it'd be really frustrating to see that because we saw like Milton's experiments in Woodbury like many years ago, and he was trying to prove that they remembered things and was unsuccessful in that. So I just feel like it would be such a pandering mistake in my opinion.
I actually kind of agree. But they had me going for just a hot sec.
Milton could have been testing for the wrong kind of response, the wrong kind of memory response.
Right. Maybe they're focused on
know,
a specific memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, what do you think about I'm just going back to the whole presenting an opportunity with Alicia with Madison's return. And maybe Victor, ancillarily.
I'm gonna kind of answer two things. One on the remembering thing real quick. I want to go back to the world beyond. So we know that they're testing, on zombies. We saw I'm sure everyone's seen the post-credit scene on that. So and if you look at the walkers from The Walking Dead season 1 to now in the entire Walking Dead universe, they have changed over time. But if the CRM has done something, we have no idea what they're doing throughout the United States. So maybe Alicia ran into a CRM project. So there could be a possibility of that happening that we don't know. But on the Alicia thing, I think you have to bring in another character to that because the other one is Morgan. We know where kind of his arc is right now, and he's trying to get everybody he can against Strand because his family but there was a particular scene where Victor almost cost Alicia her life, where she got bit, even though it was the arm that was already bitten. But I have a feeling that scene is going to come up when Madison and Morgan actually see each other, because that's a scene that never happened with them two getting to work with each other. And I'm pretty sure Morgan's going to, bring that up to her that Victor tried to kill her in that regard and almost cost her life.
Uh-huh.
So I don't see Madison siding with Victor at all. I kind of see them coming to a head, because there was even a scene, if you go back to season 4, where you can kind of see they're kind of starting to go in different ways, because remember when Victor stole all those goods from the Dell Diamond Stadium?
Yeah, with Cole.
They had
right.
that argument.
Yeah.
And then she got him to turn around, but I think that was a kind of where they were starting to veer in different directions.
It's kind of funny because I remember they kind of turned each other around because she's like, hey, you're an asshole. And then later on in the episode, she finds the just in case Jeep, let's say, or the Laredo or whatever it is, with the med kit. And she's like, well, maybe we should have one of those. It brings the concept back to the Diamond. Like, okay, if stuff goes wrong, this is strictly reserved for bugging out, let's say. So it's weird to see them kind of have a simpatico roundabout, but which again makes me think that, like, okay, as much as maybe they may question each other's motives, they still learn from one another, right? Madison and Victor. They're like,
Go
ahead.
I think you're right in that. I think she feels he made the right decision. It was just the fact that he did it on his own,
Right.
and did not include her in it.
Right. And now I'm remembering that he didn't include Madison spoke to Alicia up on the top of as she's doing the lookout, and she says to Alicia, "Hey, we've got our own just in case. Just so you know, we have our own just in case Jeep with all our stuff. Just don't tell anybody. Just don't. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just our little secret." Like, what? What's okay? Fine. Anyway, so again, it makes me think, like, is there a world in which Victor, Madison somehow sides with Victor? It's possible. If Alicia's all cuckoo pants and there's no return, if this, let's say, constant feverish pain state, it's like, have you ever seen Dr. House? Knowing that this man is in constant pain makes him a complete asshole 24/7. And so what does that look like when this Alicia's been semi on the cusp of feverish, weak, malnourished, dehydrated for 2 months? What does that do to somebody's mind?
Do you not think that if anyone was able to, like, talk sense into Alicia, it would be Madison, though?
To try, yeah.
Rather than just, like, go to Victor's side, I feel like she'd try and be, like, the middleman before, like, just going, you know what, screw my daughter, I'm actually going to side with Victor.
Don't screw my daughter. Sorry. No, I know. It does. Listen, I recognize that sometimes I throw out scenarios that sound really cuckoo pants, but yeah, that's the world we live in, though. I don't know. Sometimes I think that, I should preface, I don't want this to happen. I don't want a lot of things to happen on these shows, but here we are, and I don't know what the opportunity presents itself with, I don't know what happens as a result. And I have the same fears. I don't want Madison to chew up the screen, and I don't think she will. Like, here's another question I have to ask. Do you think Madison's presence on the show when she arrives will be short-lived? Or will she be a... Because I've heard unconfirmed... it sounds implied that she may be a series regular, but I'm not sure. And so I kind of want to get your takes. Do you think she's going to be a series regular, or do you think her appearance will be short-lived? And let's start with Brian on this one.
I want to believe it's not going to be short-lived. That's too big of a moment. I think also Coleman Domingo, he has a new job teaching or whatever. I think that may play into possible future storylines for him, which this comes at a perfect time.
Yikes.
You also have the CRM story unfolding. I think Madison probably will be more of a regular. I tend to agree with that happening. At least I hope so.
Okay. How about Bridget? Actually, I should say, what do you think they're going to do, and what do you want them to do?
There's been a lot of talk about Coleman leaving, potentially. He's had success with other projects, so I don't know. And I know that, Alicia's been on the show the whole time, and she's had, other appearances in other shows, so she might be feeling ready to leave. I'm not really sure. I feel like it'd be really weird to bring Madison back after all of this bitching and moaning that we heard for so long, to just then nix her again right away. I don't know if that's what I hope is going to happen. I really have to see how she fits into the story before I can make a decision. I
like that answer. It's kind of like, listen, as much as I don't care for her coming back, like, it would suck if she came back and just went again. I can respect that. How about you, Sharon D? Like, I mean, it's not as though you have much to go on, but what do you hope will happen? And this is, again, probably in light of all the other characters and screen time and all that stuff. Do you see them keeping her on? And is that something you care for?
Well, I mean, as far as do I care for it, that depends on what they do with her in the story. Because as it stands right now, I mean, whatever. I could, I don't really care either way. But it depends on what they do with her in the story. And do I think she'll stay around? I mean, I don't know. I think they like shock value, so what would be more shocking to bring her back, have her on for a few episodes, and then kill her off again?
We've made many
and
jokes.
Show the body this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've
Show
made
the body this time.
We've made many Walker Madison jokes over the years too. Like, that was her. Oh, it was her the whole time. It's like, what if Alicia saw that? What about you, Jasmine?
I mean,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna
I
say so. I
think
mean,
it would be. Sorry, Shandy.
go ahead, Jasmine.
I think it'd be really, really amusing if they brought her back as a walker for like one episode, just to see like the reactions of all the Madisons. But I do think they'll bring her back as a series regular, to be honest.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I happen
I
to.
I,
Okay.
I have a feeling they'll bring her back towards like the end of season 7, but then like have her for like the whole of season 8, and
And I
Oh,
don't,
wow.
I don't know, I don't know about that because the way they're decided to premiere 7, 9, and 7, 10, I'm wondering if they're gonna get if she's gonna show up in 7, 9
Oh, that she
because
might. You're saying.
yeah, yeah, because
That's
they said that they were gonna release 7, 9 a week early, and then they changed it
Oh,
up, and now they're gonna release 7, 9 on the regular premiere day, the actual premiere day, and 7, 10 at the same time.
that's
So I'm wondering if they're doing that because of some massive spoiler they don't want to get out or something.
yeah. Let me articulate that. So essentially, what you're saying is there's not going to be an AMC Plus week before preview for that episode. 7 9 is
That's what they said.
yeah.
I don't know that. Knowing AMC, this could be wrong,
This
but
could
that's
change,
what they
right.
said.
So essentially 7 9 everybody will be seeing at the same time because it'll be only available on the public airing. 7 10 will be on AMC Plus if that's what if I'm reading that right.
Right. 7, 10 will be available
Same night.
on the same day as 7, 9 on
Only-
AMC Plus.
Right. 7 10
But
will
they will both be on the 17th instead of the 10th.
Right. So that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And we've always said that we've always wanted them to make it so that, mid-season premieres, okay, don't do the week early thing. Or even like, let's say, if it's not the mid-season premieres or the season premieres, just don't air the season finale a week ahead of time. But if they're willing to do it with this mid-season premiere, that everybody has to watch at the same time. Well, first of all, I'm going to be very, very annoyed with the journos because they're all going to be going, God, you don't even know. We got the screener 2 weeks ago. Here's my spoiler for your review. And I'm like,
That's why I muted
Delete.
all of them.
delete.
I muted all of them.
Yeah, it's another thing we talked a lot about that, Sarah Beth and I, a lot about that. And she has that perspective too. She has the whole like, I don't want to be that way, and I see the other journos doing this, and it's like, I don't really like that. I don't care about being first. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've run the gamut on this. Does anybody have anything they just want to randomly bring up? Okay, so Loris is saying she was confirmed as a series regular as of season 8, though. Interesting. That's what I was trying to say before. It feels like it was implied that she was going to be a series regular. I'm not sure if it's confirmed necessarily.
I'm sure that they said on Talking Dead, like, that like they confirmed it. I'm like 90% sure.
Right. Oh,
Because when they announced it, I'm sure they asked her in the interview, like, are they just bringing you back like as a walker? And then it was like,
Right.
no, like you're
No.
confirmed as a series regular.
Right. So this is actually going to go to a comment that I saw from Alicia Devon Carey recently in an article. Something she had said, something akin to the fact that, after all these years, she's one of the few people who's been there from the very beginning, along with not necessarily Coleman as it is Daniel. Coleman obviously came in a couple episodes later. But one of the things she said was, I'm with this series all the way till the end. I'm going to be there as long as I am allowed to be there. I love being there. I want to see the story through. That's what she said. Some people may take that also to mean that her time there won't be much longer. You can wheedle through language and tone and the way she said it to construe that. So maybe the question remains, is this something... Do you think that Alicia may pass as a result of what's going on with her right now, and that Madison kind of takes the mantle again? I'm curious to know what you guys think, and let's start with Brian. Like, what are your feelings with respect to Alicia? Not necessarily about Madison, but what do you think what's happening with Alicia?
All I know is they better not do an Ophelia to us again, because I'm gonna be heartbroken on that. But
Same.
if they do if she ends up dying for whatever reason, I need some scenes with Madison. They have to. I don't want to see her die in her arms. Not after Ophelia. That was heartbreaking. But that being said, I don't want to believe she's going to die. I think she's too important. Even though she doesn't have a lot of scenes, in these past couple seasons, like her screen time hasn't been as great. I feel like she's too central to the story to just get rid of her, as long as she's willing to be there.
Right.
I'd like to believe that they're not going to kill her.
Right. What about you, Bridge?
I mean, I really do second what Brian says. I mean, I hope not. I know that they love to do stupid things for like shock value. It'd be really lame though if it was over this weird arm thing. I mean,
After coming this far.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just for my sake, again, I'm never attached, even if it's Morgan. Sorry, I have to say this out loud. Morgan's my favorite character, period. Both series. But even if it was Morgan, I would say you got to do what you got to do. If Madison leaves the show again, that's what you feel like you have to do. Do it. I'm all in service of story. So when John died, I saw not the value, but I saw that okay, that's how they want to tell the tale. They want to show impact. They want to show how like Sharon D's actually said this before. I want to see how other characters somehow grow, or which way the branches grow as a result of that passing. Let's say, because I saw it mentioned in the chat. I'm like, that's a perfect example of like not doing it to do it, or not doing it for shock value necessarily, but like this is the world we live in, and if that means Alicia goes, if that means Madison goes along with her, I mean, at least we saw the body, but if they do it to show, and look, you do have this front-loaded thing of concern, let's say, for most people who have watched the show from the very beginning. What does Fear the Walking Dead look like without a Clark in it, right? So that's also a concern from the other end of things. Like a lot of people have the concerns of like, well, Lucy's not getting screen time, and what happens to June throughout all of this? Where are the kids? Where's Wendell? But then I also think like, what does that world look like without the Clarks? And is it fear? And I this is kind of like a gimmicky question, but like, is it still Fear the Walking Dead without the Clarks? It's almost the same question as, is it The Walking Dead without Rick Grimes or Carl Grimes for that matter? These are tough questions to kind of have to wrestle with, but I think the show, and I'll just answer for myself, I think the show is just like on The Walking Dead, has slowly not weaned us off the Clarks, but slowly allowed us to live in a harsh world where we, in some senses, have to accept that the show must go on in a way. What do you guys think? Let me start with Sharon D, because I see you nodding.
Well, any show like this, you're gonna lose people. I mean, you're gonna lose people. Look at Game of Thrones. How many of the Starks are left at the end? Is it still Game of Thrones? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many Baratheons are left at the end? It's still Game of Thrones. I mean, it's just because you don't have the people you started with, or considered the core and heart of the show, doesn't mean it's not the show anymore.
Right.
That's why they introduce other people for you to care about, because they know they're going to eventually lose them.
Right.
And one thing you have to consider from the actors' side is these are very, very physically demanding and hard to shoot shows. And filming in the heat and the cold and the wet and the weather and doing it for years and years and years has got to be exhausting. So when you have someone like Alicia, who has been on, this is 7 years, I'm sure, I mean, I'm not speaking for ADC, but maybe she wants to go do something where she doesn't have to roll around in the mud.
Or take a break, even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to Jasmine. What?
I agree with what Sharon said, but I need to go to sleep. So I'm gonna leave you guys.
Okay, we're gonna end off the show soon anyway. It's been about an hour, so.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Take care. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Bye,
Say goodbye,
Jasmine.
Jasmine. It's a constant joke. Bridget. What is it Fear the Walking Dead without the Clarks? I'm simplifying, but you.
I know. No, I mean, it's not the fear that it was at the beginning, but you can say the same about The Walking Dead. Like it's not The Walking Dead it was at the beginning. It's a different, lead cast, and if the writing is done well, then we care about these characters. And so even then when they pass because the actor decided they want to move on or whatever happens, or it's to further the plot, they leave this impact, and that's okay. That's okay sometimes. So yeah, I mean, it's still fear. It's just gonna be different if that's the case. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that we would still watch, right, Brian? And that's why when I
Absolutely.
give it to you last, I asked the question to you: What does it look like? Is fear without the Clarks? And even if it is, how does that make you feel, right?
It's definitely still fear. I mean, it's not going to hit as hard as losing Rick Grimes because you have the comic attached to that, where this is kind of its own show, its own story that's going day by day. But the Clarks were from the beginning, so without the Clarks, it's tough. It's not the same story, but I think overall it's still a good story. It's still within the same universe, and even I believe Gimple said, I mean, the show's going to go on. They're branching out to other worlds out there, and so eventually we're going to lose these people anyways. But I'm still going to love the show. I'm still going to watch the universe. I'm still going to watch Tales. Wherever fear goes, I'm going to stay here till the end. And
It is kind of like a Stanley Milgram experiment, right? Like let's see how much we can take away before we get you to tune out, or to actually do the right thing and turn the TV off. But you know what I mean? And yet we still watch, right? But why? Why do we watch? I mean, when Rick left the show, when Rick left The Walking Dead, I almost was kind of like, well, let's see how they carry the torch, right? Like, it's not. And I've used that expression often. Like it is kind of like a marathon race or like a relay race, right? This guy's been running the laps. He's got like 8 seasons in him. 9 seasons. He's feeling a little tired. He hands the torch off to Judith, let's say, and Judith, when we saw Judith in that coda, like in the middle of episode 5 of season 9, we were like all like, what? She's got the little hat. She's got the little, well, it's a pretty big gun, and it's like, what is going on here? Oh my God, we get a chance to, this is like Carl and Rick in one. It's like, so I think a lot of people have that reaction. Now, there are still people out there like, it's not The Walking Dead without Rick Grimes. I'm like, okay, fine. I feel what you feel. So like taking it back to the Clarks, it kind of makes me think of Star Trek: The Next Generation. There was this weird moment where Gene Roddenberry was involved, like I think for the first 3 seasons until he passed. And then people were wondering, is it still going to be Star Trek after Gene's gone? And I have to make the argument that after Gene passed, Star Trek: The Next Generation just took off, in my opinion. There was something about that, them freeing themselves up to do some really, really wonderful things without having his specter, his direction over it. Now, I'm not putting down Gene at all necessarily, but it's almost like, to kind of bring it back to The Walking Dead, it's almost as if, what did the show look like after, who was the executive producer for season 1?
Darabont?
Yeah, Darabont. There was something interesting about seeing what happens to a show when you have a heavyweight. And I remember rewatching season 1 and 2 recently with Sharon Dean Rachel, and I'm like, and actually doing research for season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead. Something about Morgan. There was something about Austin saying something to Althea before she leaves to find Isabel that felt like Rick telling Morgan, I'm going to raid you in every day. And so I was like, oh, is he using the exact same words that Rick, she's not. Rick said to Morgan, he's not. But it made me watch those seasons, that season again, and see how brilliantly it was filmed and what they were trying to do with Darabont. But when Darabont left, they kind of had to figure out how they wanted this show to look like. The zombies changed. the tone of the show was trying to find its legs. Are we faithful to the comic? Are we not? And then as the show evolved, it kind of got better and better in its own way. I'm kind of glad Darabont left. Now, I like Darabont. I think he's a genius. Shawshank Redemption, right? Wasn't it? Yeah, if I remember right.
Yep.
So
I've been to that prison.
So yeah, wow. So going back to Fear the Walking Dead, and we've said this in certain iterations, you know, let's say specifically with John, there's something to be said about what happens to other characters when we have to say goodbye to one, right? But it's the same thing, let's say, with the Clarks, but it's a gargantuan gaping hole. What happens to the show? Let's say if all the Clarks leave, right? So I think that's an opportunity if done just right. And they have to know, and this is the interesting thing here. I am curious to know what you guys think. They have to know what they're doing right now. They must have some sort of huge plan. Do you know what I mean? If they're bringing in Madison Clark, they must know what they're doing. And they must know that A, when we see her, we're going to freak out. And B, it's going to change the dynamic of the show in a major way. That's what I feel. But I'm wondering what you guys think. Let's say, Bridget, I saw you shaking your head. I saw you nodding. Like, you know, do you think they know what they're doing by bringing back Madison?
Well, they waited, you know, some time to bring her back. So
yeah, that was at hang time, right?
Yeah, I imagine they developed some sort of plan. And then they announced it super early. So they had to have some idea. And I know that they were probably feeling the pressure from people and wanted to, you know, say to the fans, like, we're bringing her back so far in advance of actually doing it to ensure that people are, like, around for it. But I imagine that there's some bigger story, and it'll be just like every other Walking Dead story that I can't piece it together right now. And as soon as I see it, I'm going to be like, how did I not see this coming?
We won't. That's what I think. Sharon, what do you think? Does the mere thought of like them probably, I mean, look, you're a Fear the Walking Dead 4 through 6 person, /7. And so you saw the brilliance of it as it was then. So knowing what Chambliss and Goldberg have done, does that make you a little, in some ways, excited to see what they will remix or redo or do to this character as a result of her coming back, or to the show, you know, in a sense?
Well, I mean, I'm always excited to see what they're going to come up with. I mean, that's why we watch, isn't it? Because we want to know what's going to happen.
I'm trying to give you hope.
But I mean, I'm not excited for her to come back, and I've already expressed my reasons why. And it has nothing. It has nothing to do with the story.
Right.
If they bring her back and the story is great, then I'll be happy with it. But I think they have a plan. I do think they have a great grand plan because everything has to tie in together.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they know what they're doing. There's a reason for it. But it's. I agree with what everybody else, what Jasmine was saying earlier. I don't want Madison to come back and have everybody else lose screen time.
Right.
Like our people already have no screen time, so yeah.
Right.
But they got to have a plan. They have to.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm leaning. I mean, look, seeing what they've already done with Strand, and how much you love that, this extra villainous Strand, they must have some sort of similar impact waiting for you when it comes to Madison. Let's say,
you know,
even if it's subtle.
I like my ladies to break bad. You know, I wanted June to break bad. I wanted her to be a badass and go bad and go evil.
Right.
Rachel and I were watching Better Call Saul, and as we get to the end of it, I'm sorry if I'm going to spoil this for anybody, but you know how Kim Wexler just breaks bad. You know, she's like, now I know why you want June to be bad, because it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe Madison will come back and she'll be the bad guy, and she'll be a kick-ass like Leah or something, you know? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, man. Now I really think you got to watch seasons 1 through 3. Because for those who know, she's not alien to doing that. And for all the reasons past and present, you know? And so it's kind of interesting. So, Brian, what do you got? What was the question even?
It's
I don't
the
remember.
grander scheme, and then I'll try and respond to like some of the other things that were
Sure.
said. I think you were asking like, is there a bigger plan?
Yeah.
For
Or
her?
do you trust that there's a bigger plan, right?
I 100% believe there is a bigger plan. In fact, I will go to say that it's a bigger plan that involves Scott Gimple and Angela Kang. I'm going to say it's going on more of a bigger scale that that she may be involved with. Now, the one thing I do want to mention, because one of the worries is screen time for some of our favorite characters. I do believe there's some relationships that have to be answered when Madison Clark comes back. For example, June and Madison, the way their relationship started off was kind of rocky at first, and those are two, in my opinion, queens of the apocalypse there that could be a badass, formidable team. Those two, I want to see her and Althea. If you go back to that interview that Althea had, that's going to be important.
Right.
Obviously, Alicia, Daniel Salazar. If you go to their background,
Oh, Althea's not even going to be on
Brand,
the show, though.
is she?
I was
But
just
she's
getting ready
Oh,
to say that is probably one of the most disappointing aspects is that Al is
off
gone
the
before
show.
she gets the
Yeah.
chance to reunite with Madison.
But
but what if
interesting how
she?
that they laid that out too, the groundwork for her not to be there for Madison's return in a sense. I don't think they intended it, but
Well, I'm gonna say as I said when we covered that episode, I feel like they shoehorned that in because Maggie Grace wanted to leave, and I don't think that was part of their plan originally. I think that was Maggie Grace wanted to bounce, so they had to fit something in
do we
because
know that for sure?
they're all about mirrors and and loops. So having Al and Madison reunite would be important. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're
That'd be
saying.
big.
Yeah.
Those
It would
two.
be a bookend. It would be bookends to it, and they do that. So I feel like Maggie Grace leaving was not something they had planned on.
Yeah, but Lemons into Lemonade, it's kind of interesting to see that they'll never have that reunion. Kind of like we never saw them. Like we never saw Althea with the rest of the gang with Madison, right? So there was this weird disconnect, and I kind of like that there is a bit of a bookend in her not being there, in a sense, to kind of have that reunification. Let's say I don't know, whatever. I'm a weirdo, but yeah, Brian, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
I was going to say there has to be a bigger plan because this isn't Morales coming back. This is Madison Clark, who is a
Yeah,
major role in the show. Although Morales deserved better, but I digress.
I agree. But go ahead. Yeah.
But I do believe this possibly could tie into the CRM. Even though Maggie Grace wanted to leave, I feel like there's probably something in her contract possibly where it's open-ended, where she may come back in, maybe on the back end of season 7 or open up in season 8. Maybe there's a project she's working on now and she'll come back. But I
Mm,
feel like Althea is too important to the overall universe, not just Fear the Walking Dead. Her link to the CRM is huge, and you can't just ignore that. So
right.
I do think she's going to be back, but those relationships with Madison are going to be key, and I think they have to. And even Luciana, who is Nick's girlfriend, there Madison could get mad at her for not protecting him, and obviously
Boy.
Charlie.
Yeah,
These are they have to visit these things.
we should talk about the Charlie angle too, because many people have said, and I actually wholeheartedly disagree, that Charlie is on the chopping block or Charlie is in trouble with Madison coming back. So Bridge, what do you think about this? It's time to put you on the
So
spot.
I know. So, I mean, I just recently rewatched these episodes, these season 4 beginner episodes. So some of it's still fresh in my mind. And Charlie's face when that gun goes off is not like a look of malice or like contempt. It's like, shit, what did I just do? Because it's Nick and I know this guy and he was good to me, and like she reacted out of fear, right?
Right.
So I know it wasn't intentional, and I know people had like a really hard time forgiving her, like fan side.
If they
And I
ever
think-
did.
Yeah, and they were really quick to say like, I can't believe Alicia would like forgive her and take her under her wing. And I mean, Alicia had to work through it, but she's a kid. Like, she's not an adult. This wasn't like done with intent. She didn't like hunt Nick down or anything. It was just a unfortunate thing that happened. So I don't know. I mean, Madison's a mom, like first and foremost. So I don't know how she would come at that. I mean, Charlie's still a kid. She had a soft spot for Charlie, beginning of season 4 or so. So I don't know.
Yeah. And without Victor backing up Charlie too, that could be a question. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah. What do you think, Sharon D? Do you
I
think?
actually feel like this could be one of the areas that Madison and Alicia have a disagreement over that might lead to them falling out or taking, everybody having to go against Madison or something, because Alicia's forgiven Charlie. She forgave Charlie a long time ago. That's in the past for her. And Madison comes back and gets mad and wants to take Charlie out. And I can see Alicia stepping up and saying, no,
It's too far,
don't,
right?
yeah. So I feel like that could be a place where she and Alicia and Madison could come to blows or have disagreements that could lead to problems further down the road.
And if Alicia dies, then what happens to that problem? And maybe maybe if, let's say Alicia dies, let's say, that doesn't mean that Madison doesn't do the same thing with Charlie as she did with, that she did before, in Alicia's name, taking care of Charlie, let's say, like her death could be like it means for them to come together. Let's say in light of that conflict, you never know what happens. But Brian, what do you think? I'm curious.
I agree with parts of what everyone was saying, because I don't think Charlie had malice on her. I think she was scared. She was a scared little kid. She just had her family member, or who was family member to her, killed by Nick. So I think in the moment she was scared. The issue is that Madison does not know that. So she's coming in from a point of view that she has no idea. The other thing is with Madison, though, she was also sort of mentoring Charlie. That was like she was trying to teach, she was, I don't want to say she was a mother figure to her, but she definitely was trying to take care of her at that point. So I think there may be a little bit of conflict when Madison comes back. But also, as Sharon D said, I think Alicia may be that point where she's going to, explain to Madison, what Charlie means to the group, and how that went down. Because Madison coming in with no perspective of anything, she's going to be hot. That's Nick. So I expect her to be angry, but I do believe that, like what Sharon D said, there's going to be a conflict with Alicia. But I do believe that's going to get resolved. But in the beginning, I feel like she's going to be conflicted.
I almost feel like her reaction to hearing about Nick's passing might be a lot like Maggie going to Hilltop and seeing it having burned down. There's almost like, I'm not saying there was no reaction, but it's like there is almost kind of like, I kind of always knew this might happen, like that kind of reaction. Like, the point at which Madison leaves Nick anyway, he was suffering from this PTSD. He was really in a bad state post the dam fall, let's say, and having this agoraphobia of going outside again. So there's almost like, yeah, I kind of knew in the back of my head he wasn't long for this world, sort of thing. I almost could feel that, because we have to remember where she was mentally, or where everybody was just before her departure from the show. So I can see practical Madison Clark being like, as much as I hated to admit it, I could see him not being long for this world. And that's sad, and maybe almost moving on. So I'm trying to channel those feelings or that reality, So I see you have something to say, Brian.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off what you said, because now it's just kind of making me think of a new ripple with Madison. Is what if she kind of gets a sense of relief? Because like you said, he was suffering with PTSD and the stuff, drugs and everything else that he has gone throughout his life. And just so that she knows he's no longer suffering anymore, there could be that sense of relief there.
Right.
But she's going to have to get by him getting shot. But I think that'll happen. But I think there's going to be a sense of relief maybe for Madison, because he's no longer suffering.
At least he was shot by somebody who loved him. Anyway, whatever.
From a real life perspective too, like you have to think how many times would Madison have already mourned Nick in her life.
So true. Thought he was dead, and yet there was a repeating theme throughout the series. Say prior to the fall, where Nick went off, and did his thing prior to, during the apocalypse. And she would have to bite her tongue and go, he'll come back. He always comes back. Or he always sends out a flare saying I'm in trouble or something like that. And this time he didn't. Oh, and to a sense, he kind of went out swinging. Like, he went outside. He got revenge for the dam falling. I think that's how he went out, right? Because this was with Morgan and everybody else, and he kind of took matters into his own hands and, like, you know, tried to, you know, get revenge for the dam falling. Her vision of the future, let's say. So at least he did that.
You mean
know?
the stadium?
The stadium, that's right. I meant the stadium. I always do that too. When I always refer to the stadium, I say the dam sometimes. I don't have too much to say. I don't have anything to really say after this, but I was kind of wanting to open the floor to see what you guys think also. Like Loris is saying, the way Gimple spoke about Madison's return called her a fundamental character in the Walking Dead universe, so I think she will play a role in the larger universe. Or he could be BSing. Loris would know. But what do you think about that? Do you think Madison could be like one of the 3 rings in the CRM logo, as per the Walking Dead universe? Let's say, could she become an
Madison
integral?
General Beale?
Yeah. Madison General Beale. Not necessarily literally, but like, what would it look like to see her in a CRM outfit? You know? I just go ahead.
What if well, just one quick note on Nick. The other thing is I believe it was season 3, he went back to his old ways where he was getting back on drugs again, and she started to see that again with Troy, where they were doing that brainstem thing or whatever.
Oh God.
So that kind of continues her seeing him suffer even after the apocalypse started. But when you guys mentioned the CRM, another thought just dropped in my head because we haven't seen her for a long time. So what if she became sort of a Jadis figure?
Yeah, that's kind of what I
And
was thinking.
Became somewhat of a recruiter, or even like Georgie.
Right, and what does that do to somebody's? I mean, we've all seen it with whoever gets in league with the CRM. They kind of drink the Kool-Aid. What does a Madison who has that background that we've all seen? What does it do to that type of person who thinks that may be the only way? And in a sense, the stadium does kind of resemble. And I remember recalling, yeah, but if she was building the stadium to have a safe place for her kids, it would make complete sense that if she had fallen in league with the CRM, she would fall into that habit of like, I need a safe place for all these people. I need a safe. Oh, CRM, last light of the world, sounds great. You know what I mean? So it goes back to the theme I was kind of trying to express when it came to season 7, falling back to old habits but going extra. So Madison's return, being a CRM soldier, is kind of like that. I want a safe place for everybody. The CRM is the biggest stadium. So when you think about it that way, all of that makes sense. And it would make complete sense if she was a high-ranking, let's say, CRM soldier, let's say. And which makes me think I should pore over The Walking Dead World Beyond to see if she was ever referenced, in a sense. So, but I like what Loris had said. Madison has PTSD and doesn't remember Nick and Alicia. Shocker. So, could go along with the CRM story. Maybe.
What if she's mad because they never came to look for her after the stadium burned? And so she's got like a vendetta against everybody for not coming to look for her. I'm just saying, if you're like in a lot of pain and you feel like you've been abandoned, that can twist your thinking. You know?
What do you think about that, all of you? Because I don't know.
Well, I know when she left, she was under the impression that she did that for her kids to survive. So, I don't know. At least I would think if I was the parent doing that so my kids can survive, they would assume that I'm dead, because that's the last scene that they saw where they were crying and they thought she was dead.
Right.
So I don't know if she in that respect, but I mean she could have some sort of a vendetta as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is, like Loris brought this up in the comments, Madison is a great manipulator. I think it would take a great amount of brainwashing to actually brainwash someone like her. But I want to bring up the fact of, what about Rick Grimes? He's been gone for how long?
We've said that about him as well.
And I don't know that he can be brainwashed. So she could be like held against her will for if there is a CRM angle with her.
I've always said that if the only way that Rick Grimes and Madison, let's just put them all in a pot. The way brainwashing works is you give them something that they so desperately want, and then you work on that. And what Rick Grimes had always wanted, this is the thing that he had in his mind, even though he kind of let it go by blowing up the bridge. What was he trying to accomplish? He was trying to, at all costs, trying to keep people together and keep them safe. And it would make perfect sense for the CRM to work on that. Well, here's what you tried to do. We've done it. Now what? So going back to Madison, it's the stadium. Here's what you tried to do. We just saved you from what you were trying to do, you failure. Welcome to the CRM. We're all stadium walls. We've got this down. We've done this. Now, the one thing that we do know about the CRM is that they don't make their presence known. They don't bring in outside people unless it's like for testing purposes or something like that. They don't recruit. So, I mean, you almost have to figure that that one of our characters captures Madison in a sense in the act of going on a resource run or something like that, or visiting a new site for the CRM or something like that. It's going to be the same thing with Rick Grimes. The only way you're going to be able to see either of them again, is someone fucking up at the CRM, which is rare. You know what I mean? Or, well, I know that their aim's not great, but I don't know. It's just something to chew on. But what do you have anything to respond to that, or Bridget, maybe?
I mean, the comment that Madison is a manipulator is true. We saw it at the ranch. She'll take any situation and manipulate it to ensure the safety of herself and her family. So who's to say she's not doing that? I mean, what if it's like that? Same for Rick, I would assume. Are they, working behind the scenes, like trying to figure out some way to get back to their family, but also to keep them safe? Because the CRM goes all in, and if you told them about your family, are they safe anymore, or are they going to use that against you?
That's a good point too. I almost feel like her being a manipulator is perfect for the CRM in a sense. I mean, look at Jadis.
Yeah, definitely. So I could see her kind of working that system in the same way that Jadis arguably is, like, to her benefit.
Right. But in your scenario, it would be for ultimately her kids' benefit, I suppose? Is that kind of what you're leading to?
Well, if she feels like keeping herself safe is, in the long term, going to keep her kids safe, then that's what she would do for now.
Yeah. And we've said that about Rick as well. Like, the only reason why he wouldn't contact them is to keep them safe, in a sense. Because we know a lot more about the CRM. I almost feel like, to the point of comparing Jadis to Madison, I like what Loris is saying. Well, look at how she took over the ranch. She could do a simple thing to the CRM, which would put Madison in a very interesting... She would have to be in a very high and very interesting position in the CRM to make that happen, right?
I kind of think Jadis is doing that too.
Yeah, and what if they get together? What if Jadis shows up on all 3 shows? Right? I mean, that would have to be the connective tissue to all of this. And I wouldn't be opposed to that. But we also have to remember, right, that Fear the Walking Dead is, kind of in the past. It's several years in the past. So who the hell knows?
She could show up as like a trainee or something after she left. After she left The Walking Dead, she could show up like a CRM trainee.
We might see Max Zasinski too. Dennis, Agent Dennis. Yeah.
They could show up with Beckett.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, interesting. Oh no, Beckett's already dead by then, isn't he? He was the Isabel's partner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's already dead. But you're saying like a flashback?
Maybe.
Well, see, that actually brings me just to the other thing I wanted to talk about is that it has been said, and maybe this is prior to the possibility of her returning to Fear the Walking Dead, that she would definitely show up in a Tales of the Walking Dead. This could change, but the interesting thing about doing that is to tell the story or show the story of what happened to Madison in that interim. Because I don't think we're going to get it on Fear the Walking Dead. But I would like to see just like everybody wants to see what happened after the dam broke in season 3, and that story in between season 3 and season 4. But I'm kind of curious. Do you think we'll see what happened to Madison? See what happened to Madison in the interim, in season 7 and or Tales of the Walking Dead at this rate? I'll take it to Brian.
I think we'll maybe either in a flashback or possibly even Tales. But one character I think that possibly could be the connectivity tissue to all this is Howard. We don't know a lot about him, and what if he is sort of like a Georgie or sort of like a plant? Because one of the things that I said in one of my own videos is that I believe the post-credit scene of The World Beyond may be tied to the Pennsylvania. And that may be the connectivity, how those type of walkers get there, as well as with the CRM. But what if Howard is connected to the CRM in some respect, and Victor,
or Georgie being a separate entity too, right? Like, because we're not all down with her being Commonwealth or CRM, you know.
And Victor is also someone who likes to take advantage of situations. I would say he's probably even a greater manipulator than Madison, and he will use any knowledge he gets to help him without necessarily helping the people that know him. So what if he is aware of what maybe Howard may know and is using that against Alicia without telling her?
Yeah.
Maybe he might have some knowledge.
Oh, maybe he knows Madison's been alive the entire time. Who knows? But just doesn't know who she is with respect to Victor. Anything's possible. By the way, the chat's, well, you can see it if you're on YouTube, but if for the audio podcast, Sharon and Bridget are talking about how Madison's going to be kind of like barbecue Dwighty, which has been depicted too. I think by Johnny Five's Alive, right? He's done an edit.
That was a really good picture where her side profile was kind of burnt.
Yeah, exactly. I can see that happening.
But she was fried as Dakota.
Yeah, well, not as right. That's overdoing it, isn't it? Right, like charcoal. But a question was asked. I forget who this was, but I think it might have been Laura. It was like, what would be the harm in releasing a production still of Madison on set? And I think just like them actually bringing back Madison, they might, due to fan pressure, let's say. I don't believe that's true, by the way. I don't think they brought Madison back for fan pressure more than they saw an opportunity to create a huge story out of her coming back. But if it was pressure, let's say, part of the pressure has also been to stop revealing things before they actually happen.
Yes.
And proof of that is actually the return of Madison, the return of the mid-series premiere without the AMC Plus pre-release, let's say. If she's coming back and if that happens and if it's going to happen in the mid-season premiere, that's the way to do it. Don't give them anything. Let everybody freak out when they see it rather than see it before they see it. Do you know what I mean? And actually, how many of you agree with that? Because one of my biggest gripes, let's say in season 5, I think it was, revealing that Isabella's a girl. Like, you don't get that, like, she takes off the helmet and says, "Hi, I'm Isabel." You don't get that. They announced it a week ahead of time. You didn't get, we heard Daniel Salazar was coming back before the episode aired, where we saw it at the end of the episode.
Cole.
Dwight.
Cole.
Oh, Cole. That was, I think, was that?
Oh my God, that was terrible.
Right.
Why did they spoil that?
Yeah. Cole in season 6. But like, even Dwight, the fact that we found out Dwight was coming back, I get what they were trying to do. They're trying to hype us up and get TWD watchers to watch the show. But how cool would it have been if you were just watching the show in Humbug's Gulch and all of a sudden this burnt face guy goes, "Hey, I think that guy looks, well, that's fucking Dwight." And you freak out, and then word of mouth spreads like, "Hey, I know you haven't been watching Fear the Walking Dead person, but yeah, maybe you want to because Dwight's on that show." Instead of the news happening, people freaking out about it, being like, "What the fuck? Why is he on the show? I want to watch it." So maybe with this, they're willing to tell you that she's coming back. They're just not going to show you how it happens, or not even give you a glint of how that's going to happen. And maybe they're finally listening. You know, in an age where you binge watch television shows, you know, where's the mystery? You have an opportunity here. You know what I mean? So it pays to be the person who doesn't binge watch the show, let's say. For the people who are following along, this is why you watch the show as it comes out. You know, there is some relevance to that's just the way I feel. Very passionately, too. So, but do you guys have anything to say against that? Or do you guys not care even? Or do you want to see? Yeah, I mean, like, I know Laura said he wants to see what Madison looks like before she comes out. But, like, is there a value to seeing something before it happens?
I want them to wait. Just like shut it for like a minute.
I agree.
They ruined all of the suspense in season 10 of The Walking Dead because I knew the whole time that Daryl and Carol are gonna be fine. And
Right.
that was so frustrating because there were these moments where I was watching and like, you know, like the battle with the Whisperers and Daryl's like in it, and I would be nervous for a second and then that would click on in the back of my head and I was like, never mind, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an instant, and you know, as many people, as many times as people will go, oh yeah, but he's gonna be on the Carol Daryl spinoff, but he's gonna be a ghost, you know, that Carol sees. Oh, I got him killed. So no, that's not gonna happen. He's gonna survive, just like Carol is. You know.
I
You're
almost
Pet
prefer it
Walker.
would be like a lie. Like I would prefer that AMC was lying about that this whole time, and we would get to the end, and one of them would have like a noble death at the end of the show, and I'd be like, that makes me a little sad, but at least it was suspenseful, and there was something there.
Agreed. No, agreed.
Daryl's gonna be Carol's pet walker. I already called it.
It might be the other way around, but I don't know.
Either way,
Yeah. And then who comes along with them? That's the other question.
Madison. Madison's the other pet walker.
Oh, so like Daryl. So hold on a second. So Carol has two pet walkers, Daryl and Madison.
Madison.
I'm down with that.
That's how they tie it all together.
Right. And Jadis is like, hey, Daryl, and Daryl just shoots an arrow through her forehead. Well, that ends that arc. Anyways, I think we've ran the gamut on this one. Does anybody have any closing comments? Anything that we haven't brought up that we could bring up with respect to the subject?
There's the possibility of them coming over to The Walking Dead. I think that's the last bit we'll hear The Walking Dead because we know Morgan wants to go to Alexandria. So how will that storyline play in with what's going on with Madison returning?
Right, and then them filming in Savannah, Georgia, has some weird possibilities. I mean, it doesn't mean much, but could mean much. I mean, I guess they won't. Oh, you know what? It's with them going to the Commonwealth, them Fear the Walking Dead filming in Savannah, Georgia. Yeah. Okay. So maybe that is a good question to ask. Do you think any of the Fear characters will be, let's say, at the Commonwealth for the last season of The Walking Dead? Is that a possibility? And again, remember, Fear's in the past, The Walking Dead's in the present. So anything's possible, and that could tell us a lot about what happens to the Fear of the Walking Dead. Who survives?
I think we do get our time jump though, where they will kind of catch up to The Walking Dead at some point, but maybe there might be a Wall of the Lost story over there in Part C.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how this could happen, and it's hard. It's really hard. Madison equals Padre. What do you think? Laura says.
Then it would be Madre.
Right.
Is Padre real?
Right. Yeah, that's a
pipe dream.
That's a bigger Fear the Walking Dead question too. Yeah.
Because I believe they had that folder which showed what the government was trying to do with Padre, but they never really got into the core of what that was. They talked a little bit about it, but
it's funny because when we broke down that episode where she flips through it, all that was in that booklet was 3 pages depicting the Munich massacre in 1976, I think it was, or 73. Yeah, that's all it was. Very interesting. That was the specific thing that was being shown. But what does it mean? Could be a pipe dream. I don't know.
There might be an Easter egg there, but
what was that?
There could be an Easter egg in there that'll tie in later on, whatever that those 3 pages we're talking about. But I'm wondering if it even got finished. Maybe this was something the government tried to do at the start of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And
Or
it just never came through.
yeah, and we often talked about like seeing some of the Project Votus papers have this weird 2001 date too, right? I think that's what it was, 2001. And it seems like all these, I mean, 2001, shortly that year was 9/11. The Munich massacre was in the 70s, where ideologues killed a bunch of Israeli Olympiads on the tarmac in 76. So, result of terror attacks, we build these bunkers, etc. So there could be some tie-ins to that. And it could be that the outbreak was linked to something that took motion way in the past. This is ethereal stuff that you have to listen to the show for as we break this down. It's not something we could kind of necessarily bring down here, but it's something we probably might actually bring that up again for our Walking Dead World Beyond live stream, where we talk about the Stinger more in detail. We'll probably talk about the mechanics more of that scene, how that walker works, how it takes place in France, the connection to Dr. Jenner. We're going to try to do that in the coming weeks. I was going to try to do that within this week. That's impossible. Next week might be impossible too, but we will be doing it soon because I kind of want to keep that flame for the Walking Dead World Beyond alive. And especially as it pertains to that Stinger scene or the post-credit scene, because this will have more, and we could delay that live stream conversation for when we hear any news about the Rick Grimes movie or movies, as we get more news about them.
When are we getting the Pennsylvania show? That's why I think there may be a connection to that show coming out, and possibly one of those walkers attack them.
You mean Dead in the Water, right?
Yeah.
That's
and they just hit on the stub.
I haven't heard anything, and it's I actually looked this up. Ever since they announced the Dead in the Water series, and this, just so people know, the USS Pennsylvania, they were supposed to show what happened on the sub that they find in Fear the Walking Dead season 6. That Morgan is staying in season 7 with a bunch of other people. What happened to the crew of that sub, and why did it show up on the beach the way it did in the middle of nowhere? And ever since that news dropped, there's been nothing after that. Nothing. No news, no drip, nothing. It's funny. All the articles that come up are from that time when it was announced, and nothing happened after that. Is it going to be a Tales of the Walking Dead episode? We don't know. But interestingly enough, that what is exciting about Tales of the Walking Dead, and just to kind of drop it and go, is they announced a bunch of awesome actors to play various characters in the series. Terry Crews amongst them.
That he better be funny.
I hope he's not, in a way. I kind of want to see that. Listen, I love Terry Crews to death, but I kind of want to see that serious side of him. He's a very emotional guy, very in tune with his feelings. I forget the other actors, but I saw Terry Crews and I kind of forgot myself. But either way, Maxine, hang around because we're going to probably just say goodbye. I really appreciate you guys coming on and giving me your opinions. I know it was hard for many of you. But I appreciate you for doing so, because I think we need to show the gamut and the different perspectives of folks who have opinions of the Madison character, how they came into contact with that character as it relates to her role in the universe, what you feel about her possible return in relation to the other characters in the narrative at large. And I think we all represent a small piece and small nuance of how, and a good representation of how we want the story to move forward, or how we think it might move forward, considering we're all kind of hardcore analysis people. And I think that was pretty valuable. So, with that in mind, I've been your host, David Cameo. I was joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Survivors Tier member Bridget. That's how I'm going to refer to you. And, of course, our special guest, Brian Castrillo. You can check out his channel, by the way. I forget. It's a youtube.com/patriot something. I forget what it's called.
BC Patriot 0219, or just look up my name.
That's right. Look up Brian Castrillo on YouTube. He has some great recap videos. He's a sweet dude. And is your giveaway still going on?
It is, because it's going up to the 20th, where you could win the very first season of McFarlane Toys that include 2 iconic walkers, Rick Grimes, and Daryl Dixon, which, by the way, is signed by Norman Reedus.
It's
You got to the 20th to go watch
guys.
that.
What are you doing? Get in on this. Like that's a
Am I
serious.
entered,
haul.
Brian?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I know I'm at.
You're signed up for everything.
Okay.
You're on it. You're in everything. So
Okay,
you're
great.
eligible.
So check out that video with the thumbnail with Brian with Norman Reedus at what's it, Walker Stalker?
No, that was actually here in Columbus, Ohio. That was back in 2011. You can
Holy
see
shit.
Norman because he has his short hair back then, back from the season 1.
Yeah. So check out that video. It has all the details for that contest or for that giveaway. I think. Yeah. Is it one lucky winner?
Just one.
Holy
one gets
shit.
them all.
Holy shit. So generous. Thank you, Brian, for coming on, giving us your perspective and your thoughts. If you like what you heard, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars and eggplant is all you need to know that you love us. But please rate us after every episode. It lets us know that you're listening. It gives you an opportunity to tell us what we got right, what we got wrong. And, it just means you're a nice person. And if you really want to follow us on this journey, head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead and just follow us. You don't have to buy us a coffee. You don't have to join a membership tier. Just follow us so you know the inside track of when we're recording, when we drop an unedited episode recording, and just lets us know that you give a shit. And if you want to tip us to get 30 days of access to our supporter back content, you'll have that at your fingertips. If you join a membership tier for just $1 a month, you get all this and more. So with that, everybody, thank you for joining us on this live stream, everybody. You've been amazing. You gave us some really, really cool stuff to chew on. Your comments are going to be up here on this video forever. And we will see you in the next one. Thank you for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. And we love you. I think. No, it's Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Take care, everybody. Mwah. 5, 4, 3, 2, goodbye.